एक सिर्फ ध्यान में रखो, जब पहला जागतिक युद्ध हुआ 1914, there were only about 25 to 30 countries in the world. Just about 25 to 30 countries, because most of the countries were not free. Africa was not free, most of Latin America was not free, most of Asia was not free, India also was not free. So only 25 to 30 countries. After First World War, something like 60-65 countries became free. After Second World War, something like 100 countries turned out to be free, as many African countries came, many Arabian countries came, Iraq, everybody came as free country. Today there are 196 countries, if you take a football country count, because football countries are different. UK does not participate as UK. Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England, all 4 teams play as football. So there are 4 different countries. So 196 countries today. There were only few recognized languages. Now everybody understands that there are so many dialects and so many languages, and we have to respect all of them equally. I will just make one point because I think time will be up. We talk about equality without understanding what we mean. Through internet, we are going to be information equal, not just gender equal, information equal. The information that you have, I have, and the ability to react to that information you have and I have with equal measure. And that information equality, therefore we have to understand what is equality. Equality does not mean uniformity. All of us are not uniform people. There are 7 billion people, means 7 billion characters. 7 billion characters means 7 billion brains, 7 billion ideas. You may witness the same event and react differently in 7 billion ways perhaps. So that 7 billion response is not necessarily uniform, though the information that you have is uniform. So you receive same information, but you respond in so many ways. So there is uniformity in the message, but not necessarily the uniformity in response. So uniformity and equality are not same. Equality does not mean uniformity. If everybody was same all over the world, 7 billion people, from a tribal in Gadchiroli to most modern man in Manhattan, the world would be quite boring, extremely boring. It is the diversity of mankind that makes life so livable, that makes life so enriched. So it is necessary to keep that diversity, and the unity is only in that uniform message. There is uniformity or unity in the idea of gravity. Gravity is uniform, but that doesn't mean always, even before Newton, the apples were falling. No apple was going up. Apples were always falling. It was Newton who found the meaning of apple falling. So Newton responded it differently, and now we understand, and now we realize, after the arrival of internet, spread of universities, that there are people, perhaps equal to Newton's IQ, millions of them, not just thousands, millions of Newtons are working on science, and yet we find that so many other millions or perhaps billions are not having even access to that Newton's apple. So our job is, I think you are, all those people who are felicitated here now, all of you are actually taking the march of civilization very speedily forward. The speed of march of civilization was relatively slow. And one interesting thing is, we don't recognize the role of the pirates and the robbers and the thieves. We have to respect them sometimes, historically looking backward. If there were no pirates, there would have been no Vasco da Gama, or perhaps even Columbus. Columbus and Vasco da Gama did not come here to modernize us or to westernize us or to make us Christians. Columbus and Vasco da Gama in their ships took pirates who were trained, who were educated, who were informed about how to rob the ships moving around. And finally, when they were told that they have to hunt for new banks and new coasts and new areas and new regions for the spices trade, they began to look for new continents. Their intention was totally different. What we arrived at is totally different. But the pirates, if they were not there, perhaps Vasco da Gama could not have reached the coasts of India, and Columbus could not have reached Columbus did not discover America. America existed. It's wrong to say that Columbus discovered America or Vasco da Gama discovered. We don't say Vasco da Gama discovered India, but they definitely discovered different routes. And very few people quickly realize or notice that when Vasco da Gama came to South Africa at the Cape of Good Hope, he didn't know how to proceed to India. There were no instruments available. Actually, the ships were also extremely old technology. There was not even steel. There was no iron. 1498 or 1492 for Columbus. No modern shipping technology. No directional navigational systems. And yet he had to go to India. He didn't know what it means to go to India. He was guided or directed at Cape of Good Hope by one Gujarati merchant. So Gujarati merchant had already reached South Africa. And from there, Vasco da Gama was told how to come to India through the ocean route. And he came here. Now that small bit of information which that Gujarati trader provided Vasco da Gama, it took several years and several trips for him to actually come to India. Today on portals, on internet, you get within a second information about all available things and all imaginary things and all likely things in future, everything in just on a click of a button. So you are, just look at it, you are million times fortunate than the person who was struggling to reach India. You can reach the world anywhere in the fastest time. And if you are connected to Make My Trip, actually you can do the trip without, Vasco da Gama didn't have the Make My Trip solution. The point that we must understand that we are actually creating an information equality, and by information equality, we are actually promoting cultural diversity. And if we do not promote cultural diversity, while keeping information equality, we will be making the world very poor. Internet and digitalization of our mind or digitalization of information is going to take the whole population of the world within perhaps 15-20 years. Out of these 7 billion people, I think something like 4 to 5 billion people within next 20 years, next 2 decades, will be digitally literate. And not only digitally literate, they will be communicating with each other and communicating with tremendous amount of speed and access. And that access, once it is available, you can't imagine what revolution we are going through. We don't quickly understand what revolution we are going through because we go through it so easily that we don't realize its deeper significance. The children of 4-year-old today and their parents who may be in the age group of 26 to 30, they do not belong to the same contemporary era. They belong to two different era, not just generations. They belong to totally two different era. And the 4-year-old, when he will become 16-year-old or 20-year-old, and when somebody will be there at 4-year-old, he will belong to completely another era in terms of access to the world, information to the world, and response to the world. People talk about the so-called Egyptian spring to Anna movement as if it was created by social media. It was not created by social media. Social media was only a communicator. And when, otherwise communication is still there, but Anna movement is not there. So it is not social media which creates movements, it is awareness which creates movements. And when they realized that that particular awareness was sort of a false consciousness or false awareness, people gave up. History is marching so fast forward that we are unable to relate to it, and that's why we find ourselves confusion. Yesterday, or day before yesterday, Rahul Gandhi mentioned India as a beehive, and that's why I was struck by the term beehive, because he also mentioned India is neither elephant nor dragon, like China. India is a big beehive. And I think that's a correct description, in the sense that while entire media pounced on him for not giving solutions to the problem, I think he was absolutely right. Without being supportive of Congress or Rahul or Sonia, I don't think it is necessary to be supportive. I think the point that he made was, if we start pretending that I have solution of your problems, which means you are not involved in solving your problems, only I can solve your problems. That was the earlier mass media approach. When I joined newspapers about 43 years ago, I used to tell what you read and what you should read and what opinion you should have. So there were only something like 200 editors all over India who were the so-called opinion makers. The 200 editors were opinion makers. Today, those who are on blogs don't need any opinion maker. They are all opinion makers. And in fact, now people don't read newspapers for opinions. They read newspapers for information and form their own opinion and start, and sometimes giving in just 140 letters. They form their opinion and spread. And now people are responding to one opinion to other opinion to third opinion, and a global Facebook and global Twitter network is fast spreading opinions. That is, opinion is a form of a response to the situation. Now, unfortunately, this responsive generation or this respondent generation in terms of activity on internet and mobile is relatively small in percentages, and when it explodes into mass, imagine what is going to happen. In fact, I will not ask you to imagine, क्योंकि आप तो वो सब कर रहे हैं. You are actually promoting that. कोई imagination की ज़रूरत नहीं है. आप जो कर रहे हैं, शायद आपको पता है या नहीं है, ज़रूर है आपको पता, कि आप जिस रिवोल्यूशन में भाग ले रहे हैं, वो रिवोल्यूशन सिर्फ भारत का नहीं, सिर्फ दुनिया का नहीं, पूरे यूनिवर्स का पूरा ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन करने वाली है. Only other day, there was this photograph on all the net of the when the universe was born. When the universe was born, the light came, and that particular photograph of the birth of universe was flashed on all net. So we are reaching to that past, and that past is becoming present. And as very recently Sam Pitroda said, there is nothing like today anymore. Today is disappearing at every moment. Today is disappearing into past, and before we realize that there is tomorrow, the tomorrow is also gone, because the future is already here. In fact, future is becoming past. Thank you very much.